Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Oxford Exxon podcast. Chase Parham, Neal, McCready, Clark Ford studio this afternoon, 1 o'clock, almost on the dot as we hit the record button today. We're going to talk a lot of weather today as Delta comes toward Mississippi, comes toward the Gulf Coast, potentially impacting a number of SEC and college football games on Saturday, including Ole Miss and Alabama. Joining us today will be Reynolds Wolf of the Weather Channel to discuss that here pretty early in the show. As we, again, get started on this Tuesday, you can head on over to the Oxford Exxon, use the Speed Pass Plus app, pay for your fuel right there on the app. They make it quick, they make it easy. You get on with your day there with Speed Pass Plus app. All lunch specials are $5.69. You know, it's 2 sides bread, 32-ounce drink for that $5.69. Those available every day. And if you did not get a Lane Kiffin bobblehead the last time they did it before the Florida game, you can do it again this week as well. So it's going to be Saturday. It's going to be 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for kickoff there at the Oxford Exxon on Highway 6. You purchase any barbecue item out of the hot case, you get a Lane Kiffin bobblehead. Last time it was fuel. This time it is a barbecue item. So take advantage of that with the Oxford Exxon. Again, coming to you from the Clark Ford studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900 is that number. Call it. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line, no hassle, no haggle. You get your quote, and the rest is completely up to you. You can shop that quote around, or you can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. You will love the product. You'll love the service after the sale. More than anything, Corey and the people there, they want to be your car guy. They want to be your truck guy. People say, what's that mean? Call the number. You'll start to find out, 662-257-1900. Reynolds Wolf and other guests join us on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. Rafters Music and Food on the Square is open. They've got some outdoor seating, lots of indoor seating as well. Be a great place to hang out, watch the games over the next few days. MLB today, NBA Game 4, I believe, is tonight, I think. So that's tonight. Then you've got NFL rolling around later this weekend. Then, of course, college football, including Ole Miss and Alabama, at least for now, 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon at Vaught-Hemingway. If you can't get into the game, you can watch it at Rafters. Be a great place for it. Rafters on the Water open as well, and Rafters in New Albany.
So Hurricane Delta, again, is the main topic today. Is we talked about football season and all the games happening. So let's think about a hurricane being one of the reasons that one did not. Cannot remember the last time that Ole Miss game was affected to an extent from a postponement by weather. The Wake Forest game back in the day, the infamous practice up under the stadium, had a delay because of rain, but I don't recall anything like this. We had a rain delay, in Fayetteville one time, right, with Masoli? Wasn't that a lightning or a rain delay up there?
Yeah, it was a lightning delay. It stormed like a son of a...
Yeah. It was Masoli and not much else. Arkansas won, but anyway, I do remember that. But Delta has intensified quite a good bit. Again, we'll talk to Reynolds Wolf about it in a second. It's gone from 40 miles an hour to 110 miles an hour in its first 24 hours since being named a storm, and then it's headed toward Mexico, around the Cancun area, before hitting into the United States at some point. So again, we'll talk to Reynolds about it here in a second, and that'll be pretty much what the first part of the show is about today.
I'm getting him dialed up. There's no better way to do this. Although I did find something on eCam that I think is going to help us soon.
Hello, Reynolds Wolf.
Hey, Reynolds Wolf, Neal McCready, Chase Parham here with you. How you doing?
Doing great, Neal. Good to hear from you. Good to hear from you guys.
Good to hear from you. So you're headed down to New Orleans. I take it it's not to sample some po' boys or jambalaya or something.
We try to do the best we can on every trip we make in terms of trying the cuisine, but no, this is all business. This is all going down for let's see, Hurricane Delta. We're in the Greek alphabet now. Unbelievable.
So where are you right now?
Unreal. I'm actually, I'd say probably about 50 miles south of Montgomery. And I got to tell you, man, I don't know how you made this drive when you were a beat reporter years ago for Auburn and lived in Mobile. I don't know how you made this trip.
I've made the trip.
Unbelievable.
I've made the trip from from Mobile to Auburn. I can't even imagine. I don't know that I could put a number on it. I've made it at all hours of the day. I've made it in all possible conditions. There was a time, probably 2002, where I could have probably done that drive, not with my eyes closed, obviously, but you could at any point tell me how many minutes from that moment until Auburn, and I could have told you. I could have told you everything about it. I have. By then, of course, I was making that drive, Reynolds. I would leave Mobile, and I kid you not, probably fighting back tears for about the first 50 miles before I'd say, okay, it's going to be all right. You're going to get through another 5 days. It's just 5 days. It's just 5 days. I've done that so many times. I walked into that Hilton Garden Inn in Auburn in 2002, and the girl said, "Welcome back, Mr. McCready." She said, "Welcome home, Mr. McCready." And I thought, oh, my God, I got to get out of here. So I've done that. I've done that drive a bunch.
Was there ever a conversation where you said to the powers that be, "Can I just live in Auburn"? Was that ever in part of the discussion?
Oh, yeah. I asked that question probably twice a year.
Unbelievable.
I probably asked it twice a year, and the answer was always, no, we want you here in we want you here in Mobile because we want you to be part of the community. And I'm like, but I'm never there. I'm like, I'm gone 5 days a week. I come home, I have laundry to do, I've got yard work to do. I don't get to see my dogs. I don't get to see my wife. And then for me the difference maker was when Campbell was born in May of 2001. I was just like, man, I can't do this anymore. This makes no sense. And so at that point, I started thinking about exit strategies and stuff like that. So,
absolutely.
All right.
Oh man.
So let's talk about this storm because people around the league are starting to kind of make comments about it, and people are talking about what it might do this weekend. And you know, we watch these cone projections, which you can look at much better than we can, but we look at them, and the cone basically covers the state of Louisiana, and then the thing kind of hooks back east when it gets inland. And Saturday, it's just centered right over our neck of the woods, and obviously Ole Miss is due to play Alabama at 5 o'clock on Saturday. LSU has a game Saturday night at home. What are you looking for with Delta? I know it's strengthened to, I think, a Category 4.
Yeah, it is a major hurricane. It is the strongest storm on the planet right now. The big issue that we have that gives us a big wrinkle in our plan is that so much time. I mean, you look at where we are in the week. It's Tuesday. You're talking about Saturday, and there is not a person on the planet that can tell you exactly where Delta is headed. There will be changes in the models. There'll be changes in the forecast between now and tonight, and from now to tomorrow, and certainly from now to the weekend. But if it were to stay at this present course, I think it would make landfall at some point in southern Louisiana. I'd say by Saturday morning. I think it's very possible. But I'll tell you, a lot of things that will change. Not only will we see changes in the forecast, but it's very typical with these tropical systems to see fluctuations in power. It's very, very difficult for a storm to maintain this type of intensity. Very, very tough.
Yeah, because there's not a whole lot more it can go from here, right? I mean, it could just turn into an even bigger monster. But isn't it a little late in the hurricane season for one to be this powerful?
Well, that's a great question. Hurricane season ends typically on November 30th, but we've had years. 2005 is a perfect example that you can have it. Well, we have our season, and nature has her own. And if conditions happen to be right or wrong, as it were, hurricanes, tropical storms, tropical depressions can form any time of the year, any place in the year. We just typically have it in the northern hemisphere, right in those parameters from, say, May 1st to November 30th. But it is late in the season. We had Hurricane Sandy a few years back, and that certainly was a late season. That was around, my gosh, I want to say a few days before Halloween, and that hit the Northeast. So they can last all the way through November. But yes, we're beyond. I guess you could say we're well into the third quarter, so to speak, if this were a football game.
2020, man. All we need is another major hurricane. That's really be the icing on the cake, right? Just let one of those come in. And
absolutely.
So when you get down there, what are you watching for? I mean, you're clearly going down to Louisiana because that's where right now you think that's where landfall is going to make. What will you do as a meteorologist over the next I guess, 3 days to sort of monitor how it is shifting in the Gulf, gaining speed, all of those things?
There are so many parameters, so many factors that go into it, Neal. That's a great question. Thankfully, at the Weather Channel, we've got people back at our headquarters that have the intelligence of NASA scientists. They're fantastic. So they really do the heavy lifting back in our weather labs, our weather studios. What I will essentially do is tell the people story of what is happening in New Orleans, or perhaps even into Mississippi or Texas, wherever the system happens to go. But yeah, my role and goal when I'm down there is just to give a narrative of what's happening on the Gulf Coast. But I got to tell you, it's been a strange year where you have had a lot of impacts. Obviously, at Lake Charles, you've had the impacts in places like Alabama's Gulf Coast. But there have also been, in the case of New Orleans, a lot of hurry up and wait and near misses. So you could argue that New Orleans has been in a state of preparedness since day one, and they've had a lot of close calls. But as you know, a guy who grew up in Louisiana, part of living on the Gulf Coast, part of living in the Southeast is always being on standby. I mean, preparedness really is not just a measure that you take, it's a way of life. It's part of your DNA when you live on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, you start watching those things 5-6 days out, and you start stocking up, and you just determine whether you're going to evacuate or not, whether you need to board your house, your windows up or not. You start making all those decisions, which is kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you today. The SEC obviously has said, hey, we're watching this thing. Ole Miss, Keith Carter came out, the athletics director at Ole Miss came out and said no changes as of now, but we're watching it. We'll keep you updated. And LSU has said the same thing. You can't just –
And that, well, you're right, and that's really the only thing they can do. I mean, because this system could speed up, it could slow down, it could lose a lot of intensity, it could get stronger. There's so many unknowns right now. But the thing you have to consider is, you think bat wouldn't be affected by it, but the thing is, when you have a landfalling tropical system, it could be a tropical storm, it could be a tropical depression, it could be a hurricane. One of the big issues that you have is when they come on shore, oftentimes you have tornadic development. So you can have tornadoes that can form in these feeder bands. So let's say, for example, you have the system is coming on shore in extreme southern Louisiana. You're up the river quite a ways in Baton Rouge. It's very possible you can have tornadic activity. What typically happens when you have the tornadoes, though, when they're associated with the tropical system, they tend to be very weak, but they're also rain-wrapped. They're really hard to detect by just going outside and looking visually. It's not like being in, say, Oklahoma or Texas where the topography is so flat, and you have the benefit of seeing them from miles away. These can spin up really, really quickly, and they can be extremely dangerous. And what's more, when you think about Louisiana, it's not like you can run to the basement because the water table is so high. A lot of folks don't have basements. You really don't have adequate storm protection. So there's a lot of things to consider. And then when you think about other games around the Southeast, this system's going to roll its way, as of now, through Mississippi, Alabama, then back into the Tennessee Valley. So there's a lot to follow, no question.
Are you worried about your Tigers playing a game with a really wet ball and a lot of wind against the Razorbacks?
I'm worried about a lot of things when it comes to Auburn. To be honest with you. My gosh, what a mess they had against Georgia. I'm still trying to block that out. But yeah, I would say really it's going to be less than optimum conditions to play ball, no question.
I know it's just a guess, but I mean, you talk about it reaching landfall on Saturday. I mean, Ole Miss and Alabama are supposed to kick at 5. I mean, what potentially are we looking at this far north on Saturday evening? I know you're guessing, but.
No. I would say at a minimum you're going to have some heavy rainfall. And
okay.
What's weird is when you have these big bands, like a band, that's what it looks like. I mean, it looks like these concentric swirls around the center of circulation. When one moves through, say, for example, if it was going through Oxford or was going through Tuscaloosa, what you have is usually the wind picks up pretty dramatically, and then you have just this drumbeat of heavy rain that comes through. Then you have a break in the action, another band comes in. So it's like a rinse, lather, repeat sort of situation. Typically, though, when you have these landfalling systems, rain is going to be the biggest issue. Flooding will be the biggest problem. Flooding and the prospect of tornadoes. But not so much in terms of lightning.
Yeah, and then you get the wind that comes with it, too. So you have power concerns, and that's where people are like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you guys talking about this? And the answer is because you have to make these decisions Thursday, Friday. Are you willing to, as an organization, I guess, run the risk that you're not going to be taking key personnel away from trying to restore power and clear roads and things like that to provide security for a football game?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of things to think of here. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, we're dealing with, obviously, this worldwide pandemic, that the issues with COVID to begin with. That's obviously a tremendous wrinkle for the SEC in terms of scheduling and keeping everybody healthy. But then you bring in the potential of a major hurricane. Yeah, that's a lot to deal with. That's a lot on the plate.
I mean, I'm trying to, like, dominate with somebody talking to you, Reynolds. I mean, Neal, anybody, what is Keith or any athletic director really looking for by Thursday? I mean, what do you feel like we're even basing this decision on at the time it has to be made?
Yeah, I think
here's the thing.
Go ahead, Reynolds.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is I think that really I'd say by Thursday we're going to have a pretty good indication of where this is going to go, and that stands to reason, right? I mean, the closer you get to something, the better you're able to flesh out how things may happen. I would say by Thursday and Friday we should have a very good indication of how strong it could be at landfall, where exactly it's going to go, and I think that for any athletic director, the idea is you think about risk and reward. Is there a risk that we could have a lot of people hurt? And I think it's the number one thing. If there's any kind of any risk to human life, I'm sure they're going to take measures to keep everyone safe. I mean, just common sense. I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's a real complicated thing. Like for LSU and Missouri, I know that they've already had some conversations about, hey, let's just move it to Missouri. Just play the game there.
Oh, sure.
You know, for Ole Miss and Alabama, they have a common open date on November the 7th. They could easily move it to November the 7th, but you just mentioned COVID. So far, the SEC hasn't had a COVID issue, but what if you had one? They really don't want to lose some flexibility because of weather, lose some of the virus flexibility, if you will, where if one of the teams had a breakout or whatever, you could just move the game to November the 7th. It's at the end of the day, it's a kind of a complicated deal, and people are like, well, nothing's happening yet, and nothing is happening yet, but you're right. They're going to watch, and they're going to listen to you guys, and they're going to wait for Thursday afternoon, and at some point late Thursday, early Friday, you got to make calls because what you don't want, for example, Missouri to fly to Baton Rouge and then get stuck there, and they can't get out, or there's no power or whatnot. You don't want Arkansas to get all the way to Auburn and then discover that it's just not possible to play the game, and they've got to get out of there in bad weather to get back to Fayetteville, for example. So there's just a lot of logistics involved.
Yeah, the safest thing to do, though, I think, is always to err on the side of caution. I mean, it makes common sense, right? I mean, the last thing you want to do is take a chance, hope that the forecast is going to be a total bust, and then you have a team flying to Baton Rouge, then all hell breaks loose weather-wise, and then you put a lot of people in jeopardy. I'm sure that if it does look like it's going to hold together, and if it does look like it's going to cause problems in Louisiana, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of alteration. There'll be obviously a rescheduling, or there'll be just a postponement, or whatever measures they have to take. All kinds of safety.
Curious, when you're down in one of these things professionally, are you hoping this son of a gun comes right at me where I'm standing? I want to just feel the whole thing. I know you're worried about human life and the people around you, but you can't control what the storm does. When you're down there, are you hoping that, yep, I want to get the brunt of it if I'm here?
No, that's a hell of a question. When I was younger, if you asked me that when I was in my early 20s, I would have told you absolutely. But as a 50-year-old, it's kind of funny when you start getting a little bit of gray in your hair and you have kids. The sun looks a little bit differently in the sky. And you kind of think and consider things a little differently. Right now, my hope is that these things fall apart. I'd rather the forecast be an absolute bust. I've seen too many people lose loved ones, lose everything they have. My hope is that it's always going to fall apart. I always pull for the people, if that makes sense, as opposed to the storm. But as a younger man, much more of an adrenaline junkie, and now as an older guy, I just worry about people. They scare the hell out of me. And I think it's obviously a very healthy thing. You know, it's interesting. Earlier this year, I was covering a storm, and we were live on the beach in Waveland, Mississippi. And it's an odd thing on the Gulf Coast when you talk to people who have lived there, not for just a few years, but for generations. These storms, these hurricanes become really part of who people happen to be. It's a demarcation point in their existence. It was, like, for example, pre-Katrina and after Katrina, pre-Hugo, after Hugo, when it comes to South Carolina. I spoke with a gentleman there in Waveland, Mississippi, who told me about he lived nearly 2 miles away from the coast, and still, from Katrina, had 8 feet of water in his house. So you think about the impact of what these can do, how they start off with as a cluster of thunderstorms out in the middle of the tropics. And if conditions are right, they can roll and they can build and they can become this devastating, nightmarish juggernaut. And it's one thing if it roars on shore in a place where no one happens to be, but when it runs into a community, it alters things forever. I was reading last night about a storm that actually affected Grand Isle, Louisiana, back in, I believe it was 1892. And it killed 2,000 people. Now, if you look up Grand Isle today and you see the population is 1,400 people. So you go 2,000 people that were lost. Now you look at today, it's a population of roughly 1,400. That's a community that to this day, you could argue, has never been restored population-wise to where it was for more than a century. It's incomprehensible of how these can alter a landscape, how it can alter a people mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah, I mean, look at what Katrina did to Mississippi and to New Orleans and kind of all parts in between. Or as we like to call Mississippi, the landmass between Louisiana and Alabama. Hey, before I get your final thoughts on Gus Malzahn, my friend Robert wants me to ask you, this is the power of instantaneous live streaming. He wants to know, they're planning to go to 30A this weekend. They're leaving tomorrow. He says it looks like it's tracking west. Will they be okay?
Right now, I would not rule out anything. I wouldn't. And I just say that trying to be as responsible as I can be. I've seen these things shift too many times. I think that we're going to have a better, within the next 24 hours, we should start seeing, if it's going to shift at all, we're going to see it push a little more to the west or east. If this thing looks like it's headed towards, say, Houston, I would say he should be okay. If this thing looks like it's getting a little bit closer to, say, St. Louis or Mobile, I would say hold off. I'd say reschedule.
Especially before the storm actually gets here. What's kind of your day-to-day down there? I mean, what's daylight to dark for you?
A day like today, it's obviously getting down to the coast, meeting up with a photographer and a sound technician that I'm going to be working with. I've got a producer that's already there, and we will get together and find a couple of things like a live shot location where we can broadcast live. We'll talk about how we want to cover the storm itself. So it's really just a lot of planning, and then it's really a lot of hurry up and wait. But it's a strange thing. When it does happen, it is an adrenaline rush. No one sleeps during a hurricane. Even when you're not on the air, you can't sleep. It's just your blood is up. There's too much adrenaline, and yeah, there is at times a lot of fear. But yeah, it's just right now getting down there, getting in position, and seeing where this thing swims. Do
you kind of crash when you get back home? Does all that finally kind of wear off, and you sort of not sleep, but just have a little bit of energy lull?
Oh gosh, man! When I get home, I've got a crazy golden retriever and 4 kids and a wife to greet me. So I got to buck up and I got to be happy to see him, which I always am. But yeah, the first night that you get back and you're not working the next day, I mean, I'm out like a zombie. I really am. It's really like riding a wave. I mean, you go over the crest, it crashes, and then you just kind of wash out. And getting home is truly the washing out.
It's fairly real quick. We'll ask about Gus Malzahn, but it's obviously been around doing this for a while. Does the text messages and stuff from the wife, if they lessened over the years, where now it's, hey, it's just your job, you'll be fine? Like early on, were you getting a lot more, hey, you okay? Or are you being an idiot? What's kind of going on?
I'll tell you, it really depends on the
Okay.
storm. My kids
right.
and my wife have become very, very weather savvy over the years, and gosh, I'm embarrassed to say we've had so many this year. I'm trying to lose track of which storm it happened to be. I'm so sorry. But I was in Beaumont, Texas, covering one, and at a time it looked as though Beaumont was going to be in the center of the path of where this was headed. And it went into Lake Charles instead. Those poor folks, they're still recovering. And my wife was really scared on that one. She truly was. And I'll get a phone call, some text messages, a lot of fear. The kids at this point, though, it's kind of what Daddy does for a job, and they're kind of, I don't want to say desensitized to it, but they are kind of numb to it. I mean, if that's all that your dad does, it's really what everyone's dad does. It's that kind of thing.
All right, so last thing, we're firing Gus Malzahn. What are we doing? I mean, it's three touchdown loss to Georgia, and here we go again, right? I mean, it's.
I got to tell you, I had an interview with Gus Malzahn a couple years back. We did this thing called 100 Yards of Weather, and the idea behind it is that we start off at one end zone and we walk to the far end zone. From this case, Jordan Stadium was from the southern end zone all the way to the northern end zone, and we talked about the 100 yards. It had to be football, but weather-related questions pertaining to football, and spent a lot of time with him. And it's interesting, off camera, I thought he was incredibly engaging, incredibly nice, very, very likable, and even funny, very funny. But a lot of times when he gets on camera, I think he just kind of tightens up a bit. As a person, I'm very fond of Gus Malzahn. I do adore him. But I think that a lot of people are very frustrated with, my gosh, I saw a tweet the other day. I don't think he's ever won a game in Athens. And I know Auburn has not won a game in, my gosh, this century in Baton Rouge. And I know it's been at least, I think, 10 years in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, the last time Auburn won in Baton Rouge, I think I was the beat writer. It was 98.
Well, the cigar game.
Yeah.
The cigar game.
Yeah.
Wow. I hope for good things, but I'm sure that for a lot of people the fuse is getting short. I'm always going to be a Gus fan, though. I am very fond of him. I just want good things for him. I want good things for everybody.
Well, hey, Reynolds, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Stay safe and be careful, and hopefully you're right. You're down there covering a non-event, but it doesn't look good.
It sure doesn't. Always enjoy chatting with you guys, and yeah, let's send good thoughts and send good vibes to people on the Gulf Coast.
All right, that's Reynolds Wolf of the Weather Channel. Drive safe, my man. We'll talk to you soon.
You mentioned Georgia and Auburn there. Just kind of the last thing. Georgia's 13-3 against Auburn in the last 16 overall.
Georgia's 13-3
against Auburn in the last 16.
Yeah. Georgia's program's made some strides. I mean, how long has Nick Saban been at Alabama? This is year 13?
6 or 7.
He started in 7. Yeah, it was his 7th. So this is his 14th season. It takes a toll when this program in the state dominates the way that it does. It's part of the whole Will Muschamp judgment at South Carolina that you have to factor in. Previous South Carolina coaches haven't had to deal with Clemson being a national juggernaut. What does that do to limit your
Because just even recruiting, ceiling. Not just playing them every year. I mean, it's beyond that.
I mean, some people look at Auburn and say they underachieve. Some people look at Auburn and say, hey, he's gotten them. And he was the offensive coordinator when they won the title, and he took them to the championship game as a head coach. Maybe that's maxing out given where Alabama is. I don't know. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between, but it's a complicated deal. I wouldn't mind I'll tell you this, I'd rather be the guy that replaces Gus Malzahn than the guy who replaces Nick Saban, because the guy who replaces Gus Malzahn, if he does a good job, will eventually get to deal with an Alabama that doesn't have Nick Saban.
LSU's 10-3 against Auburn in the last 13.
Yeah.
So you're 3-13 and 3-10 against two teams you play every year, not named Alabama.
Yeah. They've actually had some success against Bama. They've won, out of the last, I don't have.
They've played spoiler a little bit.
They've won 4 or 5 of the last 10 or 11, I guess.
It's been ish, even.
Grinds in the thread. He corrected me. It was 1999, not 1998. You're right.
The cigar game?
Yeah. It's Tuberville's first year at
Yeah, because 98 was when State won the West.
Yeah, it was Tuberville's first year at Auburn. They went down to Baton Rouge and just pummeled LSU, and then the next week lost at home to Ole Miss in the overtime game.
7-7 against Bama.
7-7. Yeah, they've had real success.
And maybe this question for
Otherwise,
Brian as much as
he's
you.
not there.
Where does I know it's the second game, but what is the intensity and the fan annoyance with Georgia? Like, where does that fall? I mean, I know it's high. I know it's not Alabama, but how do we compare?
It's not Alabama, but it's right behind it. I mean, there's Auburn is 30 minutes or so from the Georgia line. Got a lot of kids from Georgia that go to Auburn. Pretty intense. There's a lot of people at Auburn that.
So it's not manufactured. It's real.
No. I mean, it's a big rivalry. Normally it's November, and I mean, this was weird to play it in October the 3rd or whatever they did. That was strange, but no, it's big. It's a big game. I mean, you can feel it. I've said before, it's one of the most fun games I ever covered. It's a legitimate rivalry, but there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of Georgia kids that go to Auburn. So, I mean, Atlanta is a massive Auburn alumni base. Columbus, Georgia is a massive Auburn alumni base. There's Auburn people all over the state of Georgia, and that's their most important game. So, and then it's usually right before Alabama. So, in many ways, it's kind of what's bailed Malzahn out a little bit. And some people could correct me, I guess, if they disagree. I didn't go to Auburn. I'm not an Auburn person, but I did cover them for a while. When you lose to Georgia, the good news is you turn around and immediately have an opportunity at redemption. When you beat Georgia, the bad news is you don't have any time to celebrate it, because here comes Alabama, and that's such a huge game in that state. It's until you live there, you cannot understand what that game is like inside the state. It's all consuming.
Grind says, for me, UGA, the most hated team. No respect for them. Respect Bama.
Yeah. I mean, I'll defer to an Auburn person there. Yeah. I don't know. I can just tell you, as a beat writer, those were two really big games to cover. But I've said this before. What I most remember about covering Auburn Georgia games was when it ended. You wrote and you wrote and you wrote, and then you got in your car if the game were in Athens, and you got your ass back to Auburn because you knew that next day you were going to be writing nonstop for about 5 days. I mean, just writing around the clock.
It's an interesting deal because Gus has kept his job by being 7-7 against Alabama. If that thing's 3-11 or whatever, he's fired. There's no doubt about it. But he's made his hay just beating programs that have consistently been worse than Auburn. So what's funny, I mean, Ole Miss has only beaten Auburn 3 times since 1999. Yeah,
I was going to say, I think he's survived by beating Auburn and not losing to Mississippi State, to Ole Miss, to Arkansas. He's dominated Arkansas. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my God, he's crushed them. To the point that people there call it the Gus Bowl because he gets so up for Arkansas. But that won't work long term. I can remember Tuberville getting pretty geeked up about beating Ole Miss in 2000, and some people at Auburn were like, okay, now you need to let that go. If Ole Miss is your biggest game, you're not going to be here long.
Here's a crazy stat. Ole Miss has beaten Auburn at home in Oxford 1 time since 1992.
Is that right?
At home.
They've
won 3 on the road.
Nuts first year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've won 3 times on the road. They beat them in 15, they beat them in 03, obviously, and they beat them in 99. But they've only won 1 home game since 92 against Auburn. It's been the low-key, really dominant series that Ole Miss just can't seem to get a foot into. I mean, it's not LSU. It's not anybody else. It's Auburn.
Yeah.
I mean, Alabama, obviously, but that's the one that's pretty well known. So, odd enough.
It's your Auburn football update for the day.
Sure.
But, everybody's back to the Storm for a minute. I mean, that cone is just right over Louisiana, and then it hooks, and could be one hell of a rain event here on Saturday. I mean, you start talking about 5-6 inches of rain, that's one hell of a rain event.
Do you think it requires safety, or do you think they move it if they just know that it's going to get that type of downpour, which frankly kills crowds, kills a lot of things, changes the game, that kind of thing. What do you think is the barrier there on canceling or not, or postponing or not postponing?
I've not talked to anybody about this, so this is pure speculation on my part. Anybody who reads anything into it, you shouldn't. In a normal year, I think you'd think about, hey, we could move this year. Now, look, I don't know. I'm almost afraid to go here because people get so sensitive about it. I don't know what the league's internal numbers are on COVID.
Sure.
What they know about different teams, different programs. My guess is that if the game can be played with any degree of reality, they'll play it weather be damned because they don't want to run the risk of a COVID outbreak that could impact 2 weeks of games if the timing were just right.
Yeah.
So my guess is that they try to play it. If we were living in a normal year, I think there'd be a higher chance of a postponement. But
we're not.
We're not in a normal year at all. So that's my guess. But they're going to watch it. And, I mean, if this thing, it's a 4 right now.
Already a 4.
I mean, if it intensifies to a 5 and you're looking like, a foot of rain, I mean, you can't do that. I mean, you don't want.
It's not safe to travel. It's not safe for so many different things.
The priority one is the Alabama team. They've got to
get there.
They can't fly a plane into the stadium. They've at some point got to get on buses, and you don't want to put the young people at risk, obviously. So there's things to watch. I mean, that's why when someone said today, "Oh, they're going to play," I'm like, no, that's on the table. Keith acknowledged as much.
Yeah.
I mean, as of right now, the game's on 5:00 on Saturday, but I guarantee you those conversations, I shouldn't say guarantee you, I would bet a lot of money.
What if?
Those conversations have begun to happen.
Yeah, sure. Podcast brought to you in part by Visit Oxford. Visit oxfordms.com is the website. See all the events going around town, where to stay, what to eat, and more. If weather permitting, on Friday night, October 9th, 5 to 7, they got tunes around town. It's all around the square for live music and pop-up shows, events designed to allow you to walk, catch a short performance, and as one performance stops, the next one begins somewhere else on the square. You can grab an ice cream, pass shops, pass the time while you wait for your table for dinner. It is a free event, and the lineup includes performances in front of Oxford Creamery, the Breezeway by the Growler, Visit Oxford, and Spring Street Cigars. So again, visit oxfordms.com.
The Ole Miss men's and women's basketball teams want you in the pavilion this season. Season tickets are on sale now. Can be purchased by visiting OleMissTix.com. That's OleMissTix.com. We are also brought to you by Jupiter Security Systems. They're based in Madison, Mississippi, and they provide your business with a help desk, allowing you to get a software at a much cheaper price than you would pay going directly to Microsoft or the different cybersecurity services. It's ADT for your computer systems and data. It's very affordable, flat price, no hidden add-ons. Call Eric at 601-519-9583 or email info at jupitersecurity.net. The College Corner is your one-stop Rebel Shop, 2 locations in the Jackson area in Ridgeland. The College Corner is next to Fleet Feet. In Flowood, it's next to Half Shell. If you don't live in Jackson, not a problem. You can visit the College Corner at collegecornerstore.com. Plus, you can find them on Facebook and Instagram. So whether you're tailgating in Oxford or home gating with friends and family, the College Corner has you covered. For game day through the month of October, mention Rebel Grove at checkout to get 15% off your entire purchase. You can also use it online. Just put Rebel Grove in the coupon tab at checkout. We're also brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans. They want you to know they're here for your game day needs, whether you're one of the lucky few to make it to Vaught-Hemingway this season or if you plan to watch the games at home with socially distanced friends. A new pair of Blue Delta Jeans are just what you need to look great and feel comfortable on Saturdays. Blue Delta's new line of 4-way stretch cotton pants come in 12 colors, including a great new powder blue for Ole Miss fans. So drop by the studio, DM Blue Delta Jeans on their social media, or email info at bluedeltajeans.com for more information. Remember, just because you won't be in the Grove this year doesn't mean you don't need to look your best for game day.
Podcast also brought to you by Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. All underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. You're getting local underwriting and understands your market. A leader in condo financing, the float-down option, and more. You can find Jason at 662-234-2704 or JLOWE at community-mortgage.com. mtg.com. Ole Miss plays them in a few weeks, so we'll obviously hit this a little while down there. But I saw on the board yesterday, I didn't really think about it. Ole Miss hasn't beaten South Carolina since 03. Or 04, sorry. It's been that long.
Is that right?
I get they don't play a lot, but, they lost to them in 08 and 09.
Where was the 04 game? Here?
No, Bill Flowers called a touchdown pass on, the last play of the game to beat them up there,
okay.
31-28 in Cutcliffe's last year.
Oh, that's right.
Because it's when he played all three quarterbacks for a good bit of the game. He played
Eli
Robert
beat
Lane,
them.
Spurlock here.
Eli beat them here in 03.
They had a huge lead, and then Carolina came way back and almost won. It was 43-40 or something like that.
I remember that game because I was covering Florida, Georgia that day in Jacksonville, and it was on the media TVs, and it was a blowout.
Yeah.
And I remember going and doing a lot of my pregame work, and I heard a score, and I was like, "Oh my God, wow!"
I can't remember the player for South Carolina, but it was when he did the whole tackle thing, but he never actually hit the ground, so he got up and ran it in for a 40-yard touchdown when Ole Miss thought they just had him on the ground or whatever. But yeah, Kerry Johnson had a pretty big day that day. Anyway, doesn't matter. But they lost him in 08, obviously, after Florida, the win. They lost in the highly publicized 09 game when they were number 4 in the country out there in Columbia, and then the one that Ole Miss kind of blew a few years ago under Matt here, when they had the big lead and Carolina came back and won.
It was a big loss for him.
That one, was that the week before or after either A&M or Arkansas was the exact same thing? Was that a week or two around that Arkansas game in 17?
Yeah.
Was that right?
Yeah. I think that's right. It's hard to believe that all that happened in 17.
What are the stranger seasons when you go back through it?
It was a weird year.
Put it up now because I'm curious. We don't have anything else to talk about. It's fine. Let's see. No, it was not 17. So it must have been 18. I was off. 17 was the Arkansas game, 38-37 loss. The last time they had won prior to the beaten State yesterday.
Yeah.
Because that was the week later was the win in Lexington.
The Metcalf game.
Yeah, that is correct. Because Matt went 4-2 in his last. 4-3 in his last 7 to kind of make it whatever. Because they won 2 in a row, then lost 3 in a row, and then beat Vandy, Kentucky, Louisiana Lafayette, and Mississippi State past that point. So yeah, it was 18 then for Carolina. I'm looking just to see the week, but it was. Yeah, that was the week, and I kind of remember this game, but it wasn't overly close. When Ole Miss lost to A&M the week after that, 38-24 over there, whatever, at Kyle Field. So yeah, 48-44 Gamecocks here.
Yeah, I just don't even remember. I remember the game, but I don't remember.
I remember them celebrating because it wasn't overtime, but they scored really late, maybe really, really late, like in the last 20 seconds or 10 seconds or something.
It's about 09.
Isn't that right? No, a
18?
couple years ago. Yeah, isn't that right?
I can't. Ole Miss had a 2-touchdown lead roughly, and the quarterback, whose name escapes me now, I can't. It all runs together. The quarterback had a really good fourth quarter.
The kid for Carolina?
Yeah, kind of lit him up.
Bentley. Jake Bentley.
Yeah, Bentley. He had a really good fourth quarter.
Bentley was that guy we always kind of wanted to buy stock in and thought he would get better, and he just never did. If anything, he regressed.
He was good in that quarter, though. He was perfect in that quarter.
Yeah, I'm looking here. Cap. Yeah, Ole Miss.
I just remember feeling like I was always covering the same game. It just didn't matter. It was like, they just changed uniform colors. It's the same. It's the same game. The outcome's the same. The game's the same. It looks the same. It sounds the same. It feels the same.
Carolina had a 17-3 lead at the end of the first quarter. Led 24-13 at one point. Ole Miss tied it at halftime, 27-all. Ole Miss had a 44-34 lead with 14 minutes to go after Isaiah Woolard ran in for a 1-yard touchdown.
That's right, 10-point lead.
And then Carolina scored on the next possession, and then they scored with 5:50 left and just held on. So actually, I was wrong. It wasn't a last-minute thing, but nonetheless, at the time, that made Carolina 5-3 on the season.
But Will thought he was turning the corner that day.
Hey, had a big win, and then there you go. So, Ole Miss-wise, not really a whole lot of news, I don't guess.
No, since we've last talked to you, I've put a couple notebooks up, one yesterday afternoon, one around midday today. Mac Brown talked about the what's the word I'm looking for? The irony, I guess, a little bit of the way that Saturday's game ended as opposed to how the Mississippi State game ended last year. Elijah Moore catches a touchdown pass to set it up. This time he did not get a penalty. Mac had a funny line about glad to see that he didn't celebrate much. And
look, I get it was just an extra point, but pretty cool moment for Luke Logan.
Of course.
Like, I mean, that had some healing properties in it right there. Now.
Yeah, there was some karma there in a good way. That game had a lot of karma in a lot of ways for Ole Miss. That, frankly, has been the type of game that Ole Miss has lost the last 4 years consistently.
We've seen that game.
Over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for their kid to miss the extra point and then to come back and get the touchdown, to get the penalty, and it was a easy call, but the ref made the call. It does take some guts to make the call right there, even though it's the right call. The ref makes the call, and you score, and then you make the extra point and you win. There was some refreshing karma there if you're an Ole Miss person. It had to feel different than what the last few years have kind of felt like all the time. Because those are games that you've lost. Dating back to, frankly, kind of throughout the Freeze tenure. The Auburn game in 14 when Laquan Treadwell got hurt. The LSU game before that. The Manziel games. I know he had some wins. I get that. I get that he had wins. But he had losses, too, that were like stingers.
Florida State and Alabama in 16.
Yeah. Arkansas, of course, in 15. I mean, there's a lot of those. The South Carolina game you just mentioned, the Arkansas game in 17, the Mississippi State game last year, the Memphis game last year, the Cal game last year. I mean, shit, Ole Miss has lost a bunch of those games. To the point where you start naming them, you're like, oh, yeah, that one and that one and that one and that one. And you start thinking, where were the big wins? Truth is, they've been few and far between.
And it is a mindset thing to lose games like that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You're in a situation and you've lost them and you kind of just – you're not choking. You just don't – I mean –
gets in your head a little. You get a little tight.
Look, Arkansas didn't know how to win the other night. State just didn't know how to win either and screwed it up. I mean –
yeah, I mean – if you're
Arkansas just kind of happened to be on the field in the last 5 minutes.
If you're an Arkansas fan, when the State kid fumbles the punt and you – jump on it, you have to be thinking, oh, my God, I can't believe this is going to happen now. I mean, and even then, Arkansas got a penalty where they – I mean, it was just –
they made them have to kick and the whole deal.
I mean, one of the few pleasant conversations I ever had with Houston Nutt was about this very topic, where he talked about how he said, this is something you guys, referring to media, just me and him, believe it or not. He said,
y'all just hanging out.
We were just talking for a minute. I think it was one of those deals where probably Chris Vaughn had said, he's not that bad, give him a chance. And we were just kind of talking, and he said, it's one of those things you guys don't understand because you're not in the locker room. And I was like, I get it. And he said, getting kids who have done nothing but lose to believe that they can win is very hard.
And I get that.
And I get it. That's what Sam Pittman's dealing with. He's dealing with a lot of kids who've never won an SEC game until Saturday. Lane Kiffin's dealing with that here. He's got a lot of kids, they're used to losing. It's easy to lose. To me, it's the brightest spot of Ole Miss's season. The fans are mad still to some degree about Snoop Connor's touchdown getting called back. I thought it was a great program builder, character builder. Because you had a chance at that moment to go, see, another break goes against us. The refs are against us. Everyone's against us. Instead, they just got off the field, made a stop, got the ball back, scored. Overcome adversity.
Or from a player standpoint, you're not even thinking about that later.
Yeah.
No, done.
Referees are going to make mistakes. Bad breaks are going to go your way. Sometimes you have to overcome them. And they did.
By the way, I know probably some people get their only baseball news from us, which is not a ton, but Clevenger is starting LDS game 1. For the
oh, is he? He's back?
Yeah.
Okay, good for him.
Just seen that a minute ago. Braves and Marlins 1-1 in the third right now for people in the live stream.
I forgot to turn that on in here.
Okay.
Who's it? Is it Alcantara pitching for the Marlins?
I don't know. I have no clue. I had it up a second ago when I was on the.
He's probably pitches against the Braves and thinks, "Can I pitch against the Cubs again?"
Feels like. Would you pick Braves in 4?
Yeah.
Is that what you did?
Yeah. I think they win.
Do you?
Yeah. Marlins have some good young pitching. That Sixto Sanchez, he threw the out of it.
So Braves, Dodgers in your mind for.
Yeah,
NLCS.
probably. But those Padres now, if you don't give a damn what's left and you can only watch one series, that's the one you watch.
Putting this out just because it's on ESPN.com. There's a story about it there that's pretty interesting, and I won't get into a ton of detail here. But Central Arkansas, said they have the strangest football schedule in sports this season. Trying to find games, playing whomever, whenever they can play them. Austin P, UAB in like a 6-day stretch or something. Missouri State, North Dakota State, Arkansas State, Missouri State again, Eastern Kentucky, Missouri Western State, no idea, Eastern Kentucky again, and Louisiana Lafayette.
Creative.
Just find some games. We'll play whomever.
Is that where Teague is?
Yeah, he's Central Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the highlighted quote in the story as I'm seeing it here.
I think we could get him on. I would actually like to talk to him. He's done. It's a remarkable
transition them to D1.
Yeah, and just moving on the fly.
Oh, found him a season. I mean, that's a big deal.
In some ways, it makes you wonder why, if we can do it like this, why do we schedule all these games 22 years in advance?
Because it's the way we've always done it.
I mean, Ole Miss and Purdue will play each other in 2045 and 2046. It's like, really? Man, why?
That's
just how people do it. I don't get it. I'd almost rather see games scheduled closer to time.
Speaking of strange schedules, they have played their one game. North Dakota State had one game this fall, and they have played it. It was a 39-28 win over Central Arkansas, as previously mentioned.
That was just get a money grab?
Well, yeah, because FCS isn't playing, so they will do whatever they're doing in the spring, I guess. But they had one fall game. So they got together, they did whatever, they stayed, practiced or whatever, played Central Arkansas, won, and then they're done. So,
yeah.
It is what it is.
Speaking of ESPN, a lot of people starting to build up the Lane Kiffin, Nick Saban thing this week. You knew it would happen. I wrote about it some yesterday.
Yeah, sure.
Kiffin's downplaying it, which is what he should do. It's what I would do. I did think Kiffin had a great quote yesterday where he was talking about, it ended with "there is no pixie dust."
Yeah.
And he was just talking about how, clearly he wants to get Ole Miss to a place where Alabama is. Everyone does. That's the gold standard for just about everyone not named Clemson. But there is no quick fix to that. People keep talking about, how many JUCOs do you get? How many grad transfers do you get? How many this? How many that? The truth is that's no one knows. It's a long process to get to that place. And there is nothing but hard work. You wouldn't get the job if it weren't depleted. Because if it weren't depleted and they were doing a great job, Matt Luke would still be here. Coaches get fired because they don't win. Teams don't win because they don't have players. It's not complicated.
God doesn't get fired, and you come in and go, my God, look at that roster. Dang.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of happened for Houston Nutt.
That's the closest you'll find.
But that's really rare.
And now everything else was a train wreck. Academically, criminally.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. A disaster.
I mean, I forget which year it was, and I apologize to the other team. Or whichever one I'm lumping you in with. It was either when Freeze got hired or Nutt got hired. Had the year before, so it was 11 or 7, had Ole Miss made a bowl, they would have had 38 kids academically ineligible or something.
That was 11.
Was it 11? Okay.
11.
Yeah, I couldn't remember which one it was. Was it 7 or 11?
2011 is the year that if I ever were to write a book and I could talk to everyone in it,
that's the one you want?
That would be the book I'd want to write.
11.
11.
Who's buying a book on 11?
I think a lot of people would actually buy a book about the chaos inside. If you got a real tell-all, the drug culture, the players skipping practice, the just divisiveness, the AD football coach fallout, the booster stuff. There was so much there where you could dive into it. If you could truly do a Friday Night Lights tell-all sort of a thing, how fascinating that would be.
And it would be fascinating.
That would be the year, to me, that would be maybe this is my personality, that would be more interesting to read than a story about some like Cam Newton's Auburn team. What happened? Well, we won every game. We beat the hell out of everybody and had a couple dramatic moments, blah, blah, blah. Lots of those books get written. To me, the book about how it all just went so incredibly wrong, if you could tell it in detail, would be fascinating. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but it would be fascinating.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a while, but it's probably the best season chronicle book of all time is Feinstein's Season on the Brink, Indiana basketball.
Yeah.
They didn't win. They didn't win the national title.
One of the best.
They lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. One of the best books I've ever read was Gene Wojciechowski got embedded with the 2004 Chicago Cubs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they opened the year after the Bartman game. They'd signed Greg Maddux in free agency. Mark Pryor and Carlos Zambrano and Kerry Wood and Matt Clement were all in their primes. And Sammy Sosa was still Sammy Sosa. And they were good. You know, they made the deal for Derek Lee, and they were a good team that were supposed to win. And they were on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It said, when, you know, hell freezes over was the headline.
I remember that.
Cubs predicted to win the World Series, and they didn't. They were good, but they were flawed, and it kind of fell apart, and there were injuries, and Pryor got hurt, and Wood got hurt. And Wojciechowski went day by day behind the scenes of it all. It was fascinating.
And now you get that level. That's a whole other deal, too. Because, I mean, it's a lot like this. Like Bob Knight said, hey, John, come in. We'll talk private life. We'll talk basketball.
Everything is embargoed until the year's over.
Yeah.
It's all on the record,
but
you can't use it until
you can't go write a newspaper
over.
column tomorrow. No. It's
not on the record until the season's over.
It's
It
very
would be
similar
fascinating.
It's what Bruce did with Ed here. I mean, it's meat market, same kind of deal. It just didn't work. I mean, it's always my thing. Like I said, I know Bruce a little bit, and like I remember, I guess it was Ed's last year, and it was the year after Meat Market. I don't forget, it was 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, and it was in Athens covering Ole Miss and Georgia, and saw Bruce in the press box, and he just looked haggard because it was that moment where they're not going to do enough to make the book, whatever.
Right.
Like it's not going to work. They didn't get Joe McKnight. They didn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell it was like, you know, it was fine, but I wasted a year of my life in a way.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of whatever.
Yeah.
And because I mean, if Ed does win, well, suddenly it's like, well, hell, there's the blueprint here. Look how amazing this is. Like whatever. Even if he does Cotton Bowls, frankly, like even if he just his Houston's
sure, of course
deal, but instead now it's Bruce ghostwriting a book on Ed Orgeron and Orgeron's name on it, and he did win a title. So
he absolutely did.
Flip the script, the name of that one. I've cracked it, but I can't make myself like really sit down and read it.
That's what I mean. I'm more interested in reading how it all fell apart.
Well, because a lot of journalists do that. You know, they cover the championship team and then hustle the book out. It's like, okay, here's the 300 pages, and the reason is, hey, everybody's gonna buy this damn thing for Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why they do it.
Sure, it's sentimental.
Yeah, like Travis Haney did it multiple times on South Carolina winning baseball titles. Like, okay,
Race to Glory or whatever. Yeah,
Jeff Duncan did it on the Saints winning in 09.
Of course,
it's kind of a boring book, frankly, but.
Yeah.
Had a lot of Katrina stuff in it, too, and whatever, but still it was like...
Winning books are boring.
For golf nuts out there, there have been 2. They're both really, really good. Actually, I think Feinstein wrote the first one. A Good Walk Spoiled from like 94, 95, and then Slaying the Tiger by Shane Ryan. It's the same kind of book, but the new kids, Justin Thomas, Patrick Reed. And what they would do there in both those is they would go throughout the PGA Tour season, and every tournament profile kind of a different golfer and then tell that golfer's story and kind of some inside stuff about him. And they're both really well done for anybody that likes this kind of stuff. It's kind of like just straight bio. I mean, the way Andre Agassi just let everything go and open. I mean, again, seriously, probably the best sports bio I've ever read. I've said that multiple times, but it's that good. And I'm not even a huge tennis person. So, seeing here that the Marlins apparently are doing quite well. But anyway, while we're talking, I'll tell you the podcast brought to you in part by Tyson Drugs and G&M Pharmacy. Tyson Drugs in Holly Springs, G&M there in Oxford. Immune Support Med Packs develop combinations of vitamins and supplements designed specifically to boost your immune system and lung health. A 30-day supply of vitamin C, zinc, NAC, probiotic, and vitamin D3 to work together to boost your immune system, lung health, GI regulation, and immune regulation. You can find Tyson Drugs in Holly Springs on the Square, or G&M on South Lamar in Oxford, 662-236-2222.
Anybody know what channel that game's on?
I feel like I had it up, and now I don't.
Oh, it's 4-1 Marlins in the third.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
Still hitting. Runner on first 2 out.
See, this is what Major League Baseball does. You can't even find their games.
It's not a positive, is it?
No.
FS1.
FS1. No sport makes their postseason more difficult to find and follow than Major League Baseball.
Braves can hit. It's certainly not over. But
no. No, it's not. Let's see. I need to pay a couple bills here. I was trying to get to the game. Let's see. Brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. We'll be taping A Mind on My Money later this week. That's brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. Pintrust.com, P-I-N-N-Trust.com. Detailed, comprehensive financial and retirement plans built just for you. Mention that you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You get 10% off your first year's fee. Also brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. You guys know how this works by now. You're planning a deal, planning a trip. You want to get away. There are deals to be had. You just got to find them. John can get them for you. Give him a call. Give him an email. Give him some parameters. Give him a budget. He'll come up with options that you won't find on your own. 901-494-3387 or jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. We're also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, that is the place to go. And we're brought to you by Oxford University Bank. OUB is home to Casasa. It's the absolute best cash checking account with Casasa. OUB will pay customers 2.5% interest on their balances and refund ATM fees nationwide. OUB also offers online bill pay, mobile check deposit using its online app. And we're brought to you by Bain, Moss, and Bowen, PLLC, located in downtown Corinth. Their firm practices a wider range of law from DUI defense to car wrecks to representing government entities. It's the only firm in Mississippi that's made up of a sitting state legislator, a former district attorney, and a former circuit judge. You can reach them at 618 East Waldron Street in Corinth or call them at 662-287-1620.
Seeing this in the notes a second ago, Elijah Moore, obviously just 2 weeks into the season, but his in the 4 major receiving categories, his SEC and NCAA ranks 1-1, 1-5, 1-8, 2-3 there. So pretty good start for Elijah Moore.
He's had a hell of a year. His NFL stock is skyrocketing right now, just jumping off the page.
And you thought that was the case, but the way he's taken over and frankly being used in the offense.
Well, I mean, even Saturday where Kentucky,
they knew where it was going.
They bracketed him. They keyed him. And he still got 10 catches. Not as many yards, but 10 catches. It tells you also how good of a play caller Levy and Kiffin are.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of credit goes to Matt Corral. I mean, Matt Corral is in pretty elite company right now. It's just 2 games. It's an awfully small sample size. But when you look at QBR, he's right there with Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Kyle Trask. Dudes.
Just curious how many tackles Ole Miss missed on Saturday. What do you think? What do you think the number is?
Got a bunch. I mean, it depends on how you calculate them. Not you, but them. I'll say they missed 17 tackles.
11.
Oh, they missed more than that.
Down from 16 the day before.
They missed more than that.
They have 2 players missing 2 apiece, and then 1 for the rest other how many ever? 9 players. Jacquez Jones and Jalen Jones are who they have technically credited with that.
Talked to Jalen today.
Jalen had the most tackles on the team at 9, so made 9. Actually made 11 because he has 2 assists. So 9 solos, 2 assists, and 2 missed there for him.
This kid for Miami, Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah.
Watch how free and easy he throws the ball, and he's 96, 97, just nice and easy. Boom.
There's nothing in that.
Just nice. That was 98. Arm side, just nice and simple.
The baseball version of when you got like the golfer has like the big flowing swing where it looks like they're not even whatever and it comes off like a rocket. It's like
boom. 98, low and in, arm side, ground ball.
Yeah.
Just nice and easy. Proof that you don't have to have a bunch of crazy stuff. If you can locate a fastball, move it around, up and down, in and out. You don't have much time to react to 98.
What'd you and Landry talk about?
We reviewed the week. We talked a lot about Georgia, Auburn. We talked a lot about Mississippi State, Arkansas. We talked a good bit of Tennessee. Talked some Ole Miss, Kentucky. Not a ton. We hardly touched LSU, Vanderbilt at all because there just wasn't a whole lot to say. He's remarkably low on Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Simply does not think it's going to work. Sort of seconded what we said yesterday. Was it yesterday? I lose track.
I think it was Monday. No, it was yesterday. Sorry.
Yeah. He thinks they're going to be 7th soon.
Is that because of?
He thinks this is as good of a talent
Really?
as Leach is going to have. We made the comparison. It's funny to me, like our message board is real down on Landry sometimes as it pertains to Ole Miss. And he what's Acuna's upset? What are you mad about? Somebody say something?
I don't know. Did he get hit?
He must have gotten hit.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're the Braves, you're going to make sure he does not get into any altercation on that field whatsoever right now.
No, you can't afford to lose him.
Go down to first base and smile about it.
He hit a home run early in the game, I think.
He's not happy. If he got hit with 98, I wouldn't be happy either.
Well, that's like Sixto Sanchez hit Jason Hayward with 101 the other day. And Hayward acted like, I was behind him. Yeah.
Hit him?
Hit him on the butt. He turned and it got him on the butt.
So he thinks he was being thrown at.
Probably was. And
He's saying I'm cool. It's all right. I'm cool.
If you're the Marlins, I don't know why you would. Why do you poke
as inside as I thought it was the first time? But
why do you poke the snake there? Just let it be.
You're at 4-1. Play baseball.
Well, and I mean, you know how dangerous he is. I don't want to piss him off, unless pissing him off gets him out of his deal.
What are you doing, Snitker?
Well, Snitker's arguing that he should be thrown out of the game, and the umpire's like, dude, it is the playoffs. I'm not.
We're not being that guy today. It's going to take more than that.
This is all, and a lot of this is trying to get his team jacked up.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know how much you've watched. It's so, look at this. They're playing at Minute Maid in Houston. There's not a damn soul in the stands.
Okay, see, I knew that was Minute Maid, but I forgot they were doing that, and it took a minute. I was like, okay, that's not SunTrust. What the hell is going on?
And so there's just no atmosphere at all. There's no atmosphere at all. This is, so you can have fans at a game at Texas Tech, Texas A&M, but you can't have fans at a game in Houston? Why? And I know it's Major League Baseball. It's not the state of Texas, but why?
So who got to send cutouts?
It looks like they're all wearing Astros.
So it's
stuff.
the Astros cutouts from their deal.
Yeah, it just
okay.
It does nothing for me. And so maybe this is Snitker and just trying to get his team into the game a little bit. Because normally these games, the fans are into it from the first pitch and they have an intensity about them. This is the Pizza Bowl without fans. You're just generating artificial excitement.
Yeah, sure.
I thought it was interesting to read some of the Cubs' postseason comments about how draining this season was. Just how exhausting it was. I've seen other teams say the same thing, just trying to generate that energy day in and day out at a major league level. When you're used to playing in big markets in front of a lot of people. A lot of the Red Sox said the same thing.
Still mouthing a little bit.
Is that Freeman talking to
Yeah.
Alcantara? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. If I'm up there and all I'm protected with is a club,
no,
he didn't
popped
get
it up.
I don't know how much I'm saying to a dude throwing 98, 99 miles an hour other than, you're quite handsome today, sir.
Yeah. They were still mouthing. It was still going. So.
Hey, we're also brought to you by The Rogue. I hope we will have a pregame show on Saturday. That would mean that there is a game to have a pregame show for. That's the anticipation. It will be brought to you by The Rogue, therogue.com, 4450 I-55 North in Jackson. It's been delivering fine men's clothing for more than 53 years. Their classic style, attention to detail, and commitment to excellent service continues to make The Rogue a special place to shop. You can learn more by emailing them at info@therogue.com. Also brought to you by Heritage Properties, home to 3 communities in Oxford: Faulkner Flats, Cambridge Station, and Lexington Point. All 3 properties are multifamily housing. They all offer on-site management and maintenance. They're pet-friendly, and they offer short-term leases. Faulkner Flats, located on Old Taylor Road, offers 1-, 2-, and 3-bedroom apartments, private patios or balconies, a premier 24/7 gym and tanning facility, a resort-style pool, a car wash station, and much more. You don't want to miss out on their special rates. 3 bedrooms now leasing for the price of a 2-bedroom. Contact live@faulknerflats.com or 662-234-4558.
Cunha scoring there. It was a cut to 4-2. Ball was just hit to the 6-hole, but went all the way to the wall. Must have had him really, really shifted.
Marcel Ozuna hit it.
Yeah, must have had him really, really shifted. I don't know.
It's funny, I hate him so much less now.
Suddenly he's a nicer guy.
Suddenly he's all right.
Yeah, it's okay.
When he had that other jersey on, I hated him. Thought his stupid green yellow sleeve was obnoxious, and now it's like, it's whatever.
Yeah. All right.
Just cheering for and against clothing.
We hope we have a show on Saturday. That would be lovely. We'll have one tomorrow with you, and then our normal show on Thursday night as we hopefully are gearing toward Ole Miss and Alabama at 5 o'clock on Saturday from Baldwin Way Stadium. Probably going to be wet no matter what, but we'll have to do what we can. Appreciate everybody hanging out today. Thanks to Reynolds Wolf for giving us a little bit of time from the Weather Channel on his way to New Orleans. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.